Hello there and welcome back to the channel. This is just a quick update on the BLHeli 32 situation, and unfortunately it isn't good news. Things are getting worse, not better. However, I'm going to explain why in a minute. Now, for those who didn't see my video on Saturday or haven't seen what's going on, basically Friday last week, BLHeli as a business, the people who make BLHeli 32 ESC firmware and the people who used to make the open source BLHeli firmware basically said they were ceasing trading. From Friday, they would be no more. They were closing down operations. They would no longer be providing licenses for any new ESCs from Friday onwards. Now, this information leaked out to the community around late Friday, early Saturday, and whilst that meant there would be no more BLHeli 32 ESCs being produced, at that moment in time, you could still upgrade the firmware on your existing BLHeli 32 ESCs via their suite. Now, whilst new production had stopped, users were still able to both configure their firmware on their ESCs as well as update the firmware. Now, the real important thing here in this is that the servers were still active. However, today, or at least over the last 24 hours, something has changed, and now you can no longer update the firmware on your BLHeli 32 ESC. You can, though, still use BLHeli Suite to do all of the main configuration, but what this now means is whatever firmware your BLHeli 32 ESC was on is now stuck on it because there was no published firmware files available for BLHeli. Now, just to demonstrate this here, we have a BLHeli 32 ESC connected to my computer. If I just click Read Setup, you can see there it brings in all of the information from the ESC. And this one is currently on the latest version, which is 32.10, because I updated this Saturday morning. However, if I now go to the option for ESC Flash, you get this message here saying server is down for maintenance. Please try later. Thank you for your patience. Now, the real big issue here is that there's believed to be some safety critical bugs in some of the earlier versions of BLHeli 32 that have the potential to do things like spool up the motor uncommanded. Some of these were fixed in the latest version, which was 32.10. However, that is no longer available. Anyone who has not already updated the firmware on their ESC is now no longer able to do so, and you are stuck on the version that you were on before. Now, there has been no information given to the community from BLHeli as a company about what is going on. They've contacted their suppliers on Friday, but other than that, we have been told nothing. As a result of this, I've actually opened up an issue request on the BLHeli GitHub. This request, as you see here on the screen, is basically a request for information about what BLHeli intends to do. As a business, they've told us they intend to shut themselves down, or they have shut themselves down. However, it is frankly unacceptable that they have just pulled the plug like this without providing solutions for users, especially those on earlier firmware versions that have known issues. I have made a request to understand if they intend to publish their firmware files that they have made up until this point in time, but if they're not going to do that, or even if they are going to do that, do they intend to release the bootloader that allows people to reflash their ESCs with firmware such as AM32? Today, we are all left in the dark, and the only thing we can do is something like this, which is say, hey, can you tell us what's going on? And I put a link to this issue request in the description. I would ask you all go over there and give it a like. The more people they see communicate on this, the more chance there is of us even getting a response. I'm not saying we'll get an answer, but here and now we have nothing. So please do go check it out. Now, this is a complex and difficult situation, and it isn't acceptable in any shape or form for users to be left with hardware that is potentially dangerous. Users should always be in a position that they are able to update the firmware on their device. This is a true sign of issues with cloud-based updates, because when the business disappears, then so do the updates. Now, I'm not going to say open source is the perfect answer to everything, because it isn't. However, for us, the future is open source with regards to ESCs, and AM32 will absolutely fill the gap that has been left by BLHeli 32. However, right now, BLHeli as a company has a duty of care to its previous users to allow them to update the firmware away from a version that has safety critical bugs. It is not acceptable to just walk away when you have openly acknowledged in earlier firmware versions that you fixed bugs, including the ability for the ESC to spool up unintentionally. This needs resolution, and it needs it now. You need to either publish the latest firmware files for all of the ESCs available on the market, allow the servers to continue to work to allow updates, but more than that, also publish the bootloaders to allow people to unlock their hardware and install firmware that doesn't have safety issues. We as a community have given you a lot of money over the years, and for that you have given us software, but that doesn't mean you get to just walk away and think, hey, it's fine, I'm all right now. With regards to people with ESCs, I'm not going to tell you not to use them if you're not on BLHeli 32, 32.10. There are loads of people who have never updated their ESCs. I actually don't generally update the firmware on my BLHeli 32 ESCs either. It's not something I have always felt is absolutely necessary. There is a bug in earlier versions, but there are many bugs in FPV, and while something like a spool up is completely unacceptable and dangerous, there is always risks around FPV, and the best thing we can do as a community is make sure we take our own safety as seriously as we can. Keep your hands away from the props when you're plugging in your batteries. That way, if something was to go wrong, at least you're not going to get hurt. It is difficult. It isn't easy. The aircraft we have inherently are designed in such a way that means your hand is in the danger zone, but there are things that you can do to try and mitigate this. None of this, though, takes BLHeli as a company off the hook, but if you do have an ESC, my advice to you is check what firmware it is on, but take into account that you may never have had an issue before, you may not have one in the future, but just be careful. Just make sure that when you are powering it up, and if you're at all not sure, get rid of it. Get yourself something else. Today, it's got to be AM32. Now, if you'd like to support the AM32 project, because I strongly suggest everyone does, we all need it. It is really important to us right now. There is a link to their Patreon in the description. Please do check it out. They are going to be the future as I see it today. Yes, there are other ESC open source firmwares out there, but I've seen nothing from the others that leads me to think that they are remotely a contender. For me, the people I talk to, the people I know, all tell me that AM32 is the way forward. We're going to be talking about it a lot more on the channel in the future. I am actually going to be making a video showing you how to update your BLHeli 32 ESC to AM32, but that isn't for everyone. There are risks with that as well, but we will talk about that in the future as well. Now, the situation today is that BLHeli, do the right thing, publish the files, stay safe. I will speak to you soon.